Welcome to the Control Web Access Using Web Filtering lesson. After completing this lesson, you will be able to achieve these objectives. Understand why you should use web filtering. Describe FortiGuard categories. Configure FortiGate web filtering. So why do organizations and people in general use web filtering? Web filtering helps to control or track the websites that people visit. There are many reasons why network administrators would apply web filtering. To limit access to distracting websites, such as social networking sites, to keep their employees focused on work and maintain productivity. To prevent network congestion by making sure users do not use valuable bandwidth for non-business purposes, such as streaming a video. To decrease exposure to web-based threats by limiting access to potentially harmful websites. To limit liability if employees attempt to download inappropriate or offensive material. To prevent users from viewing inappropriate material. For web filtering, FortiGate can use FortiGuard category filters to control web access. FortiGuard categories are derived from the FortiGuard web filtering service. The service includes the FortiGuard URL categories database, which sorts billions of web pages into a wide range of rating categories. Each category contains websites or web pages that have been assigned based on their dominant web content. These categories can in turn be blocked or allowed according to their content. The database categorizes web content based on its viewing suitability for three major groups of consumers: enterprises, schools, and home and families. For example, Twitter is categorized as part of the general interest personal category, while Dropbox is categorized as part of the bandwidth consuming category. Note that categories can be further divided into subcategories. The general interest personal category includes subcategories such as social networking, news, and media, while the bandwidth consuming category includes subcategories such as file sharing and storage, internet telephony, and streaming media and download. Website categories are determined by both automated and human methods. The FortiGuard team has automatic web crawlers that look at various aspects of the website in order to come up with a rating. There are also people who examine websites and look into rating requests to determine categories. To review the complete list of categories and subcategories, visit www.fortigard.com/webfilter/categories. To search for the category for a specific URL, visit www.fortigard.com/webfilter. FortiGate works with FortiGuard categories to determine how websites are filtered. Rather than block or allow websites individually, FortiGuard category filtering looks at the category with which the website has been rated. FortiGate blocks or allows website access based on the actions defined for that category, not based on the URL. FortiGate allows or blocks connections to websites based on the actions configured for the FortiGuard web filter category in FortiGate. The following FortiGuard web filter category actions are available. Click each action to learn more. To enhance network security, you can configure FortiGate for web filtering based on FortiGuard categories. Expand each task to identify the recommended process. First, ensure that FortiGate has a valid FortiGuard security subscription license. Second, identify how the FortiGuard service categorizes the specific website you are trying to block or allow. Third, configure a web filtering profile to use FortiGuard category-based filters. Fourth, apply the web filter security profile to a firewall policy to start inspecting web traffic. At this point, if you want to generate logs, enable logging on the firewall policy. Finally, test the web filter security profile configured for the specified FortiGuard category-based filters. Now let's watch a senior Fortinet instructor demonstrate the following tasks. Click each demo button to learn more.
Today I'm going to show you how to configure Web Filter on a FortiGate device. As described, the real-world scenario for this demonstration is an organization's IT management team has a directive to control the websites and applications that have been either limiting employee productivity or impacting performance on other business-critical applications. The network administrator will achieve this by configuring FortiGate to perform web filtering based on FortiGuard categories. Task 1. Ensure that FortiGate has a valid FortiGuard security subscription license. We'll connect to the local FortiGate GUI and log in with the username admin and password. In the left pane, click Dashboard, and then in the right pane, you'll locate the Licenses widget. A green check mark appears beside Web Filtering, confirming that the service is licensed and active. Task 2. Identify how the FortiGuard service categorizes specific websites. To configure web filter categories, you should first identify how FortiGuard categorizes specific websites. On the local client VM, open a new browser tab, and then go to https://fortiguard.com/webfilter. Use the web filter lookup tool to search for the following URL: www.twitter.com. Notice that Twitter is listed in the social networking category. Later, we'll assign the block action to this category. Now we'll search for the following websites to identify their web filter categories: www.skype.com. Skype is assigned to the Internet Telephony category, and later we'll assign the warning action to this category. www.ask.com. Ask is assigned to the Search Engines and Portal category. Later, we'll confirm the Allow action on this category. www.bing.com. Bing is also assigned to the Search Engines and Portal category. Therefore, it too will be covered by the Allow action, which will confirm later that it is assigned to this category. We'll test the web filtering using these websites and categories. Task 3. Configure a web filtering profile to use FortiGuard category-based filters. We'll begin by reviewing the current settings for a web filtering profile. We'll close the current browser tab and then return to the tab hosting the local FortiGate GUI. In the left pane, click Security Profiles and then click Web Filter. Double-click the default web filter profile to edit it. Verify that FortiGuard category-based filter is enabled. Now we'll expand each of the categories to view their subcategories and currently configured actions. Let's identify the current action for the Internet Telephony category, which is Allow. We'll identify the current action for the Malicious Websites category, which is Block. We'll identify the current action for the Social Networking category, which is Allow. With the goal of preserving employee productivity, we're going to set the block action on the social networking subcategory, which is part of the general interest personal category. With the goal of preserving bandwidth for business-critical applications, we're going to set the warning action on the Internet Telephony subcategory, which is part of the bandwidth-consuming category. We'll expand bandwidth consuming and right-click on Internet Telephony, and then click Warning. The Edit Filter dialog box will open and allow us to modify the warning interval. We'll keep the default setting of 5 minutes and then click on OK. We'll expand General Interest Personal and right-click on Social Networking and then click on Block. Next, we're going to apply the web filter to a firewall policy to start inspecting web traffic. Click OK. Task 4. Apply the web filter security profile to a firewall policy. On the local FortiGate GUI, in the left pane, click Policy and Objects, and then click Firewall Policy. In the right pane, we'll open up the port 3 to port 1, and then double-click the full access policy in order to edit it. In the Security Profile section, we'll enable the Web Filter option, and then in the drop-down menu, we'll select Default. Default is the security profile that we previously configured to use FortiGuard categories and actions. We'll also want to enable the logs to store and analyze the security events that are generated by the web traffic. Under Security Profiles, we want to ensure that the settings for SSL inspection are on. Remember that this profile is required to be able to scan HTTPS traffic. Options are Certificate Inspection, Custom Deep Inspection, and No Inspection. Under Logging Options, we'll enable the Log Allowed Traffic and then click Security Events. We'll keep all the other default settings and then click on OK. Task 5. Test the configured actions for FortiGuard category-based filters and examine logs. On the local client VM, we'll open a new browser tab, and in the address box, we'll type twitter.com and then press Enter. A web page block message appears according to the predefined block action for the social networking category to which Twitter belongs. We'll close the tab, open a new browser tab, and then go to skype.com. A web page block message appears again. However, this time the option to proceed is provided. This is according to the predefined warning action applied to the Internet Telephony subcategory to which Skype belongs. Click Proceed to accept the warning, click Advanced, and then click Accept the risk and continue. We'll be granted access to Skype. We'll now close the tab, open a new browser tab, and then go to bing.com. Bing appears because it belongs to the search engines and portal category, which has its action set to allow. Now we'll examine the logs to analyze how FortiGate has recorded security events based on actions configured for the FortiGuard category filters. We'll close the tab and then return to the tab hosting the local FortiGate GUI. In the left pane, we'll click on Login Report and then Security Events. In the right pane, click Web Filter. Now we can identify the actions that were taken when accessing Twitter and Skype. Notice that the access to Twitter was blocked, but also notice that the access to Skype was blocked on the first access attempt, but it was allowed on the subsequent attempt. There was no security event generated when accessing Bing because we were successfully accessing the website on the first attempt. Demo 2. Configure the Authenticate action for a FortiGuard category filter. Now I'm going to show you how to configure the Authenticate action for a FortiGuard category filter. Task 1. Apply the Authenticate action for the File Sharing and Storage subcategory. In our scenario, after reassessing our Internet use policies, the organization has determined that further measures must be taken to block access to other bandwidth-consuming websites, including OneDrive. FortiGuard categorizes OneDrive as part of the File Sharing and Storage subcategory. However, because OneDrive is a critical application for some groups of users, we want to grant access to a particular group of users. To achieve this, we're going to apply the Authenticate action to the File Sharing and Storage subcategory so that only specified user groups can access the category of websites, while others are blocked. On the local FortiGate GUI in the left pane, we'll click on Security Profiles and then Web Filter. We'll double-click the default web filter in order to edit it. Under FortiGuard Category-Based Filter, we'll expand Bandwidth Consuming, right-click on File Sharing and Storage, and then click Authenticate. The Edit Filter dialog box will open and allow us to modify the warning interval. We'll configure the warning interval for 5 minutes, and the selected user group will be Override Permissions. We can then click on OK and OK again. Now we're going to create a user to test the Authenticate action. In the left pane, we'll click on User and Authentication and then click User Definition. We'll click on Create New for user type and then Local User and then click on Next. For the username, we'll enter Student and for the password, Fortinet. We can then click Next and Next again. We'll click the User Group option to enable it, and then in the drop-down list, we'll click Override Permissions. The Override Permissions group is the one that we specified as having the Authenticate action for the Internet Telephony subcategory. We'll click Submit, and we'll test the Authenticate action. Task 2. Test the Authenticate action and examine the logs. On the local client VM, we'll open a new browser tab and then try to access OneDrive.com. The web page block message appears, but we have the option to proceed. We'll click on Proceed, click on Advanced, and then accept the risk and continue. We're prompted to provide credentials. In the username field, we'll type in Student, and in the password field, we'll type Fortinet and then click on Continue. Now we'll be granted access. We're going to examine the logs in order to analyze how the FortiGate has recorded security events based on the Authenticate action configured for the FortiGuard category filter. We'll close the tab and then return to the local FortiGate GUI. We'll click on Login Report and then Security Events. In the right pane, we'll click Web Filter, and in the logs, we'll identify the actions that were taken when accessing OneDrive. And notice that access to OneDrive is initially blocked, but after authentication access is granted.
You have completed this lesson. You are now able to understand why you should use web filtering, describe FortiGuard categories, configure FortiGate web filtering,